Hello and welcome to my 8th video showing my sketches of the properties on the London Monopoly Board. Now, in this video, we're going to look at the last coloured set of properties, the dark blue set, the most expensive. Now, if you're of a similar age to me or older, you might be aware of a famous TV sketch featuring comedians John Cleese, Ronnie Barker and Ronnie Corbett, where all three of them are standing in a line, and it's obvious that Cleese is much taller than Barker, who's much taller than Ronnie Corbett. Bowler-hatted John Cleese says of Barker, "I look down on him because I am upper class." Ronnie Barker then looks at Cleese and then down on Corbett, saying, "I look up to him, but I look down on him. I am middle class." Ronnie Corbett then adds, "I know my place." Well, to me, Park Lane is a little bit like the Ronnie Barker character, because I don't know whether I should look up to it because it's in the most expensive set on the board, or whether I should look down on it because it's so clearly a second best to Mayfair. And it's not a heroic Scott of the Antarctic second, nor a Buzz Aldrin second either. Park Lane never has a helpful chance or community chest card telling players to go to Park Lane. Park Lane's rent with a hotel, might well be a very impressive £1,500, but it's still a whopping £500 less than Mayfair in the same set. And Mayfair's not even a street, it's an area. Well, Park Lane runs from Marble Arch to Hyde Park Corner, and this is where the name derives from. Prior to this, it was called Tyburn Lane. The Tyburn is one of London's underground rivers, but as we saw when we visited Oxford Street, Tyburn became synonymous with public executions. I can't help wondering if it's the name Park Lane which decided Victor Watson and his faithful secretary Marjorie to put Park Lane exactly where it is on the board. Because where they chose to put Park Lane on the London board, on the original Atlantic City board is a property called Park Place. Must have seemed like a bit of a no-brainer, especially considering when they were scouting out scouting London locations, Park Lane was already one of the most prestigious locations in London. The fact that it was home to the very swish and newly built Dorchester Hotel can only have added to the attraction. Both of the properties in the dark blue set have had their names used for cigarette brands. And while we're on the subject of Park Lane trivia, being part of London's inner ring road along with Pentonville Road, Park Lane marks a boundary of London's inner city congestion charge zone. Since the start of the 20th century, Park Lane has had a rather uncomfortable relationship with motorised traffic. It officially reached saturation point in the 1950s, so work was carried out to widen the road between 1960 to 1963, so that it's got 3 lanes each way separated by a central reservation. This time also saw the building of the largest underground car park in London underneath Park Lane in Hyde Park. I remember my father in the early 70s thinking about parking there and taking us to see the Christmas lights. When he saw how much the car park cost, he changed his mind and drove us all home again. Well, as he informed us, it was the thought that counts. Park Lane saw its ties with the worldwide game of Monopoly when the Park Lane Hotel hosted the 1988 World Monopoly Championships. Bearing in mind how long a game can take, I wonder if it was finished in time for the 1989 Championships. In the Sherlock Holmes short story, The Adventure of the Empty House, the house in question is located in Park Lane. Now, coming back to the World Monopoly Championships, that was the only time it was held in the UK. So I guess that's one achievement where Park Lane did come first. Mayfair hasn't held one yet. And so to Mayfair then. I'm going to make a small confession. I have actually made all the sketches I'm going to need for the utilities and the stations and others. So this sketch, which I just finished today, is actually my last sketch of the London Monopoly Board, even though there's 2 videos still to go. So Mayfair, as we've already said, it's not a street, it's an area in a rough quadrilateral shape, although local resident, a Regency wit called Sydney Smith, called it a parallelogram. It's bordered by Park Lane, Oxford Street, Regent Street and Piccadilly, which, to add insult to injury, are all themselves locations on the London board. I can't help holding this against Mayfair. To me, if Mayfair was a person, then it'd be a spoilt toff who has everything handed to him on a plate, and it wouldn't last 5 minutes in a dust-up with either Whitechapel or the Old Kent Road. Coming back to reality for a minute or two, Mayfair takes its name from a fair, which was held in the area during the month of, well, May, isn't it? The fair predated the development of the area because it first took place during the reign of Edward I. The fair lasted until 1764 when it was banned. Specifically, it lasted in the part of Mayfair which is now called Shepherd Street. And if you look at my sketch, you can clearly see the street sign above the property in the foreground on the right, which says Shepherd's Market. Shepherd Market, incidentally, was named after a man called Mr. Shepherd, not because shepherds used to take their flocks there to sell them. The sketch, looking at it, I haven't checked exactly when the photograph I used as a reference was taken, but judging by the fashions, it looks very early 50s, late 40s. Now, as tended to be the case with other London fairs, the Mayfair became known for increasing seediness. But the area took a remarkable turn upmarket when the land on which it was held was obtained by the Grosvenor family. The family would come to acquire the title of the Dukes of Westminster, a title they still hold. They developed the land, building the elegant Hanover Square, Grosvenor Square and Berkeley Square. I've never actually heard a nightingale sing in there, but since I only walked through it at midday once, that's not surprising. Mayfair hasn't lost its exclusivity since its development. Excuse me. The nature of the area has, though. Prior to the 20th century, it was characterised by having the London homes of many aristocrats, but that side of it has dwindled, and it's home to far more commercial headquarters and also to national embassies, possibly most notable of which is the American Embassy on Grosvenor Square. You know, I can't help wondering whether Victor and Marjorie were swayed in their decision to make Mayfair the most exclusive property on the whole board by the presence of some very famous hotels. I mean, to name but 2, you've got Brown's Hotel between Albemarle and Dover Street. That's supposed to be one of the oldest in London. Alexander Graham Bell made the first telephone call in the UK there, and Rudyard Kipling wrote at least part of the Jungle Book there. In fiction, it's supposed to be the model for the Bertram's Hotel in the novel by Agatha Christie. Even more famous than Brown's, probably, is Claridge's on Brook Street. During the Second World War, it was said that only Claridge's would be good enough for exiled European royalty. There you go. Okay, despite the chip on my shoulder about Mayfair, I do have to admit it is a highly diverting part of London to visit and walk around. The squares are absolutely beautiful, and the area isn't short on sculpture. My favourite in the area is probably Hares by Sophie Snyder in Berkeley Square. There's even a couple of museums there. One dedicated to local resident Michael Faraday, and another in Brook Street dedicated to residents George Frederick Handel and Jimi Hendrix. What a musical collaboration that might have been. Well, this brings us back to go and is the end of our sketching tour of the colour sets. In our next video, the penultimate one of the set, we'll be looking at the stations, so I hope to see you then. If you've enjoyed it, please subscribe to my channel. Take care.